Is Mr. Lewis lying?
With respect to what, sir?
I said, is Mr. Lewis lying when he tells this committee that you put pressure on him along with Mr. Paulson?
All I know is that I never said that I would replace the board and management if he invoked the MAC.
Mr. Lacker, is he lying?
He's summarizing a long conversation. I don't recall exactly what was said.
Just had a long talk with Ben. Says they think the MAC threat is irrelevant because it's not credible. Also intends to make it even more clear that if they play that card, and then need assistance, management is gone. You didn't say anything like that?
I don't know if I did or not.
Now, you know, one of the things, I was chairman of this committee for 6 years, and we did a lot of investigating. One of the things that I learned was, in order to keep people from perjuring themselves, they couldn't remember anything. Are you sure you can't remember?
I'm sure I can't remember.
The email that we received from Jeffrey Lacker, Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, that indicates that in fact they felt there was pressure related to the MAC. How do you explain that? Is that just another independent person that misunderstood?
Well, I don't recall the details of that conversation, but I'd like to make 2 points.
Misunderstanding what the conversation he had with you in those quotations.
I don't recollect everything that was said in that conversation. I'd just like to make, again, 2 points, if I may.
I'd like to have do you believe that he is incorrect, according to your recollection, because he's saying, in a nutshell, you planned to make a threat. Now, you may not have done it, but he's saying you planned. Is he lying, or is he
I don't
misunderstanding?
recollect the details of that conversation.
In light of his email paraphrasing a longer discussion, do you intend to speak to him and try to clarify how the difference in interpretation could have happened?
I've done so already, and he didn't have any further recollection.
It casts doubt in the minds of the financial market participants, including investors, creditors, and customers, about the due diligence and analysis done by the company, its capability to consummate significant acquisitions, its overall risk management processes, and judgment of its management. How is that not a threat? If you have the power and authority to release the board of directors and fire the CEO, and you're questioning their judgment, and you are saying, if you don't go through with this deal, how is that not a threat?
That he made that threat at the request of Chairman Bernanke was changed later on by Mr. Paulson. But what he said was, and I think this ought to be in the record, his prediction of what could happen, talking about you, his prediction of what could happen to Lewis and the board was his language, was Paulson's language, but based on what he knew to be the Fed's strong opposition to Bank of America attempting to renounce the deal. You were the Fed. And he said it was based upon the knowledge that, that the Fed's strong opposition to Bank of America attempting to renounce the deal was something that he knew to be the case, and that he was, in effect, speaking on behalf of what you had said to him.
The gentleman's time's expired. Chairman Bernanke, you're directed to answer his question now.
We were strongly opposed to that action for the reasons I've described.
Is that your answer?
Yes.
Okay. I think that
forward two months ahead to December, and we have the email that and letter that both Mr. Issa and Mr. Burton had brought up. The letter that Mr. Cuomo, New York AG, sent to members of Congress, where he said, Secretary Paulson has informed us that he made the threat dealing with the Merrill Lynch acquisition at the request of Chairman Bernanke. We also have the email from Mr. Lacker, the Richmond Fed chairman, talking about, just had a long talk with Mr. Bernanke, says that think the MAC threat is irrelevant because not credible, also intends to make it even more clear that if they play that card and they need assistance, management is gone. And then the third one I would point out, too, is the email from Mr. Angulo at the New York Fed, which deals with the disclosure concern. Also, this is in December of last year, where he says, I think I'll ask Merrill Lynch, current estimate, fourth quarter, and he makes a statement, if I get a sense that Merrill Lynch is leaning toward an early January filing, I'll try to steer them toward a later filing. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to point out is you have all this pattern here, and which, as I asked Mr. Lewis when he was here, if what took place at the October 13th had an impact on his decision making, his thought process as he moves through this dealings in December with you and with Treasury relative to the Merrill Lynch acquisition. Do you see how a reasonable person could reach the conclusion that there in fact was this pattern of pressure from the government?
No, not if you're sufficiently informed.
Traditionally, but so let's just remember you are placed in that position of being under oath.
Losses accumulating could well have been a viable reason to predict that the enterprise value going forward was less. Wouldn't you say that was based on normal accounting?
I shouldn't drift into the securities law, which I'm not an expert. The advice of my attorneys was that the MAC would be unlikely to succeed, and even if there was a significant probability of not succeeding, it could have caused a lot of disruption in the financial markets.
Even if they threatened to do that in the context of negotiating?
Well, you can't negotiate anything unless you're willing to go through with your threat.
Oh,
as you
that
know.
happens every day, Mr. Chairman.
That he's basically washed his hands in concern for a potentially tough confirmation hearing. Makes sense?
My only association with Mr. Geithner during this period was occasional phone calls to update him on the general developments. I'm not aware of any other involvement.
The CFO, Mr. Price, who said, fire BOD if you do it, meaning the MAC. Tim G. agrees. An email from Tim Geithner on December 20th at 8:02 in the morning. Are you all over B of A/ML, and are you getting what you need from the troops? And this was to Kevin Warsh.
Between your general counsel, Scott Alvarez, and a New York Fed official. The New York Fed officials asked, have we conveyed anything to the SEC regarding the Bank of America situation? They know something's up. How much, if anything, has been shared with the SEC? Mr. Alvarez replied, I have not discussed this with the SEC. Bank of America has complained that someone did talk to the SEC, with the result that the SEC called late last week to say that they heard the Bank of America was negotiating a city-type deal with the U.S. government and to ask Bank of America to explain the unexpectedly high losses at Merrill Lynch. You didn't direct any of those?
I did not.
Does this, Mr. Alvarez, work for you?
He does.
He does? He did this on his own?
Again, I would emphasize that the issues at hand did not directly involve the SEC. They involved the OCC.
Are you his boss?
I'm sorry?
Are you his boss?
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez?
I am.
Would he do something like this, make this kind of a statement that could cause these kinds of problems without your authority?
I didn't have any knowledge of this particular exchange. And again, the rationale for it, as I understand now, having discussed it with him, is that the agencies that were relevant to our transaction were the FDIC, the OCC, and the Treasury. That's the ones that we kept closest in communication.
Did the Fed know about those accelerating losses before the Fed approved the merger at the end of November?
No, I don't think we did.
Well, may I introduce into evidence this email, which is from Dennis Herbst of the New York Fed to Audrey Overby of Merrill Lynch, and it's dated Wednesday, September 17th. It says, hope this gets to you. Audrey, our management, that is the New York Fed, has asked to continue the flash report on a daily basis, and I'm sure you'll share with the SEC. But you knew about Merrill Lynch's condition before you approved the merger. Now, did you not? Did you not know about their financial condition was failing before you approved the merger? If